You are living in the most dangerous time in American history.
We won't take a single back step.
Former professional basketball player is now the Republican Party's choice.
Can you imagine Royce White, the U.S. Senate?
White won the endorsement on May 18th with 67% of the vote.
There's nothing that guarantees we win, but I guarantee you if we lose, we will die. Good evening. Welcome back to another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio, powered by our favorite sponsor, TireGet.com. That's TireGet.com. You have to buy tires from somebody. You might as well buy them from us. Help fund the movement. Help support the movement. We believe in the freedom of movement, and that's exactly what the establishment wants to take from you now. I'm your host, Royce White, here in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and this is episode 288. Today we have another incredible family and friends edition. In studio with me is my mother, Rebecca White. Good afternoon, Mom. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you.
Thank you for coming. You look beautiful, by the way, and we appreciate your time today in the studio. I promised earlier in the week that we may have you on the podcast. And again, I want to talk about childhood. Your childhood, a little bit of your backstory, because it's the first time people are meeting you. They see you on some of the social media posts, and they had big engagement in the MAGA world, the MAGA world of social media. But now they get to put a name and a face and get to hear from you yourself. And I want to talk about childhood because I'm doing this Remember Normal series, and when I was growing up in the 90s, things were very different. I remember a much simpler time. I remember the music being very different, and music and television and movies and books and, comedy are a huge driver of culture. And I think when I was younger, we had our own pop culture of the 90s, right? But because of people like you and the other elders in the community, aunts, uncles, grandparents, great-grandparents, I had a reference of a time that was even older and much simpler still, and much better too, now that I look back on it. Better, yeah. When in the 90s, I was thinking...
You can say it.
Now I think about it, when you're a kid, you go, what's cool is cool in the 90s, right? But
Right.
Now that I look back on it, I was introduced to things that come from an even older generation, and they were still very relevant even during my childhood. Like, I think back, and I always reference Ice Cube in the First Friday movie and how much of that classic black 60s and 70s, or even just 60s and 70s music in general was used in that film, like David Bowie, for example, Fame, right?
Right.
I mean, it's just like there was a time where things were even more different than they were in the 90s when I was growing up. So I want to go back to your childhood and talk about what it was like growing up in St. Paul. What it was like growing up in St. Paul. Let's start there.
Amazing childhood. A lot of fun. It was safe. Safe in a way that you can't even relate to because, things were different even for you 20 years later, or however long that was. I come from a large family, so I grew up feeling like everybody knew everyone. Everyone knew us. That's just, it was a much different time. I mean, me and my cousins still talk about the things we used to be able to do when we were young. How we got on the city bus to travel to each other's houses across the city. Like, I would never let you do that. You would have never been able to come to me and say, yeah, Mom, me and my friend are going to get on the bus and we're going to go. I just, absolutely, you're not.
Yeah, I didn't even ask to do shit like that.
No,
I already knew it wasn't an option.
it wasn't going to be an option.
Yeah.
We did, though. We did, like, all the time. And It was just a really, it was a village. It was a lot of fun. We made up games. We went outside. You weren't allowed to stay in the house. You know, we went outside every day. My dad worked at the community center, so there was a summer program there. So when we were older, grade school, where we probably needed to be doing something a little bit more organized, we would go up there. I mean, we grew up at the Martin Luther King Center, and a bunch of other families' kids grew up at the Martin Luther King Center. So that's the extension of family. Like that's what I'm talking about. The village. These are people that you saw every day.
Yeah.
So
And to talk about and pull this mic over to in front of you for this way, I think. Yeah, there you go. This way. Yep. Talk right in front. Okay. So, and you talk about I want to talk about the heritage background because it's unique for me. A lot of people, and race is still a dominant thing. And I want to talk to you later on about what you saw happen to the black community over the course of your lifetime and what it was like, raising three black children, but I grew up in a different house than my siblings. They're 12, 13 years younger than me, so that's different. They grew up in an even different time. But what it was like raising, kids in the black community and what things you had to think about and be concerned about and what choices you made in order to try and make sure that we were safe and headed in the right direction. But race is still a dominant thing, and it always is weird to me because growing up in St. Paul, growing up the way that I did, uh, knowing my Mexican roots, knowing my Norwegian roots, being very close, obviously with my black family. I mean, we're black, and there's no doubt about that. We're just black. My dad's full black. You're majority black. I think 50% black, and your mother is half Norwegian and Welsh, half black. Father was black, foundational black American descendant of slave, as they call it. He was through the slave trade. And your father is half Mexican, half black. Mother is Mexican. Father is another FBA, American descendant of slave. And yeah, both came through that Southern slavery American history. So I guess it was weird to me, not just our own family, and like the fact that I spent so much time with my grandma Sandra, who her mother was Norwegian, and she looks white. If you just saw her on the street, you'd be like, that's a white woman, but her dad is 100% black. But I think it's just the culture of St. Paul too, where and maybe it's where you worked, and maybe it was where my grandpa Frank worked, and maybe it's just the Twin Cities in general, where I I, I woke up one day in race, even in my lifetime, from the '90s when I was growing up as a kid to the mid 2000s. I woke up one day, especially in 2020 and George Floyd and this whole last 10 years. I woke up one day and the racial thing was just so loud. I mean, it was just so much incendiary coverage and discussion and dialogue about race where if I was being honest about my childhood, I grew up around a lot of white people and I never felt a sense of race. I'm just being honest.
yeah,
I'm not saying racism didn't exist. I'm not saying racism doesn't exist. I'm just saying, if I'm being honest, I grew up playing basketball in South St. Paul. I mean, South St. Paul and West St. Paul were not minority communities when I was a kid. They were predominantly working class white communities. I'm not sure what the politics were because I wasn't paying attention at the time. As a little kid, you don't really know things like that. I don't even remember when elections were coming around, which signs were in the yard, really. All I remember was going trick or treating. We're right around the corner from Halloween and trick or treating on South St. Paul. And but there were tons of white people and they were all nice, more or less. And if they were mean, it didn't feel like they were mean racially. It felt like they were mean to all the kids. Like if there was a mean adult and they were just kind of rude and honorary, it felt like they were rude and mean to everybody. I never felt singled out based on race when I think back on it. And it's, I don't know, maybe it's the Twin Cities. Maybe it's just, how we grew up or my family dynamic because I was able to move around the city and grow up in multiple places. But what was it like for you growing up? From a racial standpoint, because again, I'm told by like Professor Penn and all these boomers in the '70s, there was a brief moment of a collapse in racial tension. There was a brief moment where people were hanging out together, people were partying together, people were listening to the same music that was coming from multiple races of people. Like I said, David Bowie, and then you got Motown. You could name them forever. There's so many, but there was a time of racial harmony right there in the '70s, and then somewhere things fell apart. What was your take on it growing up in a culturally diverse family, and in the Twin Cities or in St. Paul?
Well, I just, you know, we, it's hard to explain it when you really don't have anything to compare it to. We had friends of every color, although we also grew up at a time when we knew what part of the city not to go to. Like we knew, like, right? So we knew there were parts of the neighborhood that we just didn't go to. And not necessarily that something incredibly bad was going to happen. It wasn't that type of thing. We just knew where we weren't welcome. Um, so the city was still, I remember that. I remember the city being segregated in places where by the time you were growing up, those places weren't thought of in that way anymore.
Mm.
The East Side, we didn't go to the East Side. We didn't go anywhere but beyond Rice Street, like not even Rice Street. Uh, that it just wasn't so.
And this is in the '70s.
Oh yeah, in the '70s. So I think that my sense of belonging, and knowing that I was something different than the next person probably wasn't such a big deal for me because my family was so big and my family was different colors, right? So growing up with that in your household, it just didn't seem like it was that big of a deal. I don't start to get aware of that until later in
Yeah,
my life.
yeah,
My before, if you think about middle school, 11, 12 years old, my life before that, I don't really see it as
yeah.
an issue.
Right. So as a kid, going to school, there wasn't a lot of racial tension, or growing up as a kid. When I was growing up as a kid, you had what kids do in elementary schools. They divide themselves into little cliques and groups, and it was even more constrained to the schools by the time I was a kid because typically, even in the early '90s, you didn't have such a prominent neighborhood activity. There was a little bit, a lot more than there is now, for sure, but not as much, I think, as when you were a kid. When people talk about just going out and hanging out until the streetlights came on and the doors were left unlocked. Already in the '90s, that wasn't the way things were. So
Right.
the way that kids organized themselves was primarily based on their interaction at school, maybe after school program, maybe sports. But sports was already played all over the city, and you had a group of friends from sports, you had a group of friends from school, you had a group of friends from the after school program for a lot of kids. And a lot of that had to do with like open enrollment starting and people being able to go to school a different place than they
Right.
live. But when I was in school, even when I was in school, it was a diverse, uh, uh, mix of people. I remember heavy Asian Hmong, obviously, because St. Paul was is one of the biggest Hmong immigrant communities in the whole country. So, heavy Hmong, the Hmong
And
kid,
our neighborhood specifically.
our neighborhood specifically,
Yeah, our neighborhood.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, right next
Where
door.
Grandpa lived. Yeah.
Next door to Grandpa's house, the Hmong family was, good friends of ours, and they had the Super Nintendo, and the mom and the parents were cleaning fish in the backyard. That was just how we grew up. And Grandpa Louis, and my grandfather's father, Grandpa Louis White, had his own garden in the backyard. And these are two low blue collar houses.
Right.
These are concrete slabs smack right next to each other with a 3-foot sidewalk in between.
Right.
and they both are doing self-sustaining, citizen things in the back of their house. So you had the Hmong. Obviously, the Somalians started to come in the 90s. So I remember growing up with the Somalians in school. You had your Mexican, you had your Latinos in the school. You had your whites, you had your blacks, your foundational black kids. Uh, and it never seemed, people hung out with themselves a little bit, but it didn't really seem racial. Like because the immigrant communities in the school were so based on primary and secondary language. It wasn't that we weren't hanging out with the Mexican kids because they were Mexican. We weren't hanging out with them because they spoke their language and we didn't understand it.
Right.
Or the Somalian kids spoke their language and we didn't understand it. Or the Hmong kids spoke Hmong and we didn't understand it. And for those few kids from those immigrant communities that did speak English as well, we were friends with them. I remember my boy from junior high named Abdi, and Abdi was Somalian, and he was tall too, and he could hoop, boy. Me and Abdi, we'd be caught not in class, in the gym with a basketball playing one-on-one. I don't know what happened to Abdi to this day. I feel bad about it because I always thought back and like, that was one of the kids growing up that could actually beat me. We go back and forth, but he could actually beat me. He reminds me a lot of the kid at Hopkins now, Ahmed Nur, who was top 40 in his class and has a chance to make it all the way to the NBA. He's a special talent. But anyway, so there wasn't really that racial division in the school based on racial tension. It wasn't like, oh, look at those Mexicans or look at those white kids or look at the Hmong or Somalis. It was like, we don't really speak y'all's language. What was it like when you were a kid? Was there any of that racial division in the school? And was it based on race or was it based on something else?
I think there was division. Uh, I went to school on the West Side. My mom bought a house, so my my K through 6 experience is at Cherokee Heights, Upper West Side
Yeah.
public school. We had a little bit of everything. The West Side was what someone would call a melting pot. I don't know that it really was that.
Yeah.
There was definitely racial tensions, but when you think of that, I think maybe your thought is very Hollywood and theatrical, and that there were, you know, um, very celebrated tensions and that type of thing. It wasn't, but people really did have um, generalizations that they made about other people, and that manifested
Right.
between us as kids
As
at
kids?
school, for sure,
Yeah. But was it
for
but
sure.
was it prominent though? Not was it their instances. Was it w- did they have to have restorative circles in school because there was so much racial division? It seemed like the white kids and the black kids
Absolutely
just
not.
couldn't get together or
Absolutely not.
get along. That didn't exist, right?
That didn't exist.
Yeah,
No.
it doesn't seem like it. And I say that because, and to piggyback back off of what we said earlier about the racial background of our family, and you got your mom who's Norwegian, mother was a Norwegian immigrant, whose mother's mother was a Norwegian immigrant. So Grandma Doris, your mom's mom, and then Grandpa Milton, who's black, one of the first 8 cops in the city of St. Paul, and your father, Frank White, my grandpa Frank, mom was a Mexican immigrant, dad was black, Grandpa Louis, and even when I look back at their friend groups or like people will come up to me who knew Grandpa Louis his whole life, like lifelong friends of Grandpa Louis from the bar. And my Grandpa Louis was, we'll talk about Grandpa Louis in a minute, but he went to the bar. He
Well, because his friends owned the bars.
there you go.
I mean, these
Yeah,
are
there you go.
his high school friends,
Right.
and probably people who treated him to. You have to also, like, let's just be honest.
Yeah.
You were, I was Frank's daughter, right? I was Lewis's granddaughter. So there are probably people who treated you differently because they got to know our family through sports.
Right.
If that were not the case, we would maybe had had a different experience.
Well, And that's an interesting
I
point.
mean, and it was generations.
Well,
Like, so it was
yes,
generations. It wasn't just like,
a
so,
one-off.
so for instance,
They knew these people.
this is an interesting
Yeah.
experience that I had, and I'm not surprised by it at all, but you went to go speak, and I just happened to go with you this night, and we were way out, beyond Forest Lake. You spoke. There was a group of people there. I don't know if you recall. We hung out a little bit afterwards.
Yeah, I remember. You took
And
a group picture,
took a group picture. We had a great time.
room full of white folks.
And after, predominantly, not all white, but
Few,
predominantly
yeah,
white,
but yeah, mostly white.
right? So a woman came over to me, and people are introducing themselves and that type of thing. And she came over. I was still sitting in my chair, so she bent down to hug me, and she whispered in my ear, and she said, "I knew Louis." My dad was really good friends with Louis, and I just thought to myself, of course, Grandpa knew a lot of people.
Yeah, and
A lot of
yeah.
people.
Well, there's two things. One, I want to say the sports piece is obviously a piece. I mean, I remember going with Grandpa Frank, your dad, my Grandpa Frank, all around the state of Minnesota, and he was still refereeing. He's a Hall of Fame referee for those who don't know, but he was still reffing D2 colleges, D3 colleges. So
Mhm.
him and his little brother Louis sometimes, or Bill and Steve and that whole crew, Gail and Roger and all of those guys would go, and rest in peace to Gail. We just
Yeah.
lost him recently, but they would all go and referee in these rural parts of Minnesota. And so, number one, I got a chance to be around white people in that context, like a lot of white people, rural white folks. And they were always nice to me then. I mean, they were just very regular people. They weren't racist. They weren't looking down at me because I was a little black kid or anything like that. They was just like, hey, there's Frank's grandson. Now they were unruly as hell to the officials, but they were just as unruly with the white officials as they were
Yeah.
the black officials, because no ref gets an easy time, especially when the games are as competitive and high stakes as when you get to some of these small towns, because it's a big part of the town's entertainment and
Yeah.
fabric. But again, so sports definitely was a part of it, but Grandpa Louis was a unique individual. And, I remember, we were talking about it yesterday. I remember coming up to Grandpa Louie's house, Grandpa Frank bringing me over to Grandpa Louie's house, and Thomas at the time being a little rough, a little hot, traffic, definitely some drugs being sold in the area, definitely, a criminal kind of roughneck element starting to develop there. And I'd come up to the house, and Grandpa Louie would be standing in the doorway, or he'd be coming around the back from the garden, or he'd be in the back. But, a lot of days he'd be standing right there in the doorway looking down the street both ways. He paying attention. He got that screen door just standing there, and he's a tall man. He's 6'2", 6'3". So, you saw him in that doorway, and you'd walk up, and he'd be like, "Hey, grandson," and, hug you. And as I walk by him into the house, he'd still be looking outside that door. He'd be looking down the street, and he had some choice words about the young black men up the street that were doing whatever they were doing. And he wasn't politically correct about it. He was, look at these stumble bums here. Look at these splibs. Look at these knuckle draggers. I mean, that's just
Wait a minute now.
what? Is it true or not true?
I don't think we should fear the truth.
It's true.
It's the truth.
So I'm just saying that.
But we're not.
I'm just saying that because I haven't met a single person in my life that had anything negative to say about my grandfather, Louis White. Not to say he didn't make mistakes. Obviously, he wasn't a perfect person. Nobody is. But as far as people that I know, Grandpa Louis is one of the most respected people when I go anywhere. And he's known well outside of his own immediate neighborhood because of sports and other things as well. So, the way that he was, I don't even think really rubbed off on me until I was grown. And I started to think about it, and I started to, like, this guy was really Republican. He was. I mean, he was a Republican.
Right, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
seeds are always being planted.
Yeah.
Seeds are being planted. And just because he was quiet and he wasn't a in your face, preachy, pay attention to me, like as you're going through and saying the things that you remember about grandpa, the Negro Leagues and all of that type of thing, you realize when I was a kid, I didn't know that.
He didn't even talk about it.
No,
Humble.
completely humble. You know, once he got sick and you know, he had a diagnosis and a time span of what they thought he would live for. Uh, this is when I start to know some of that history. And Grandpa was my favorite. You know that. I went and checked on Grandpa all the time. I
Yeah.
called him in the morning. Like, these are things that really didn't get talked about. They didn't happen during my lifetime, but he wasn't braggadocious. He wasn't that type of guy. And just because he wasn't loud with it and didn't force feed you lectures and on principles and things like that, his consistency was planting seeds the whole time.
Yeah.
He just was consistent in who he was.
Well, yeah. I mean, and again, I remember it like it was yesterday. He didn't spend a lot of time, like you said, he didn't preach on it. I just remember back now and think about the comments that he had on the changing element in the neighborhood regarding some of the young black men that were, selling drugs on the block, banging the loud music, wearing their pants sagging, and he was a man that wore his slacks and wore a coat, a windbreaker, and a hat, and some basic shoes. And I didn't even know what he did for work. You just told me the other day he was an insurance guy. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
All I knew is every Christmas, all of his kids and their kids and the grandkids came to his small house for Christmas Eve, and the men played cards and the women got the presents together, and we sang Christmas carols as a family, and it was funny as hell. And Grandpa Louie gave $5 to all of the great grandchildren. You could count on it every single Christmas until the day that he died. And I didn't even know where he worked, but I did know when I came to that house, uh, he would be there. I knew where he would be. I knew what he would be doing. I knew he would be in that garden and he'd be jarring his own pickles or his own peppers or his
That's right.
own, his own green beans or whatever the case may be. He'd have that grill out in the back, and and this is tiny little house. I don't think you can't even really imagine it, but it's a tiny house. It ain't no middle class house. It's a
No.
it's a low working class house, and we fit the whole family in there, and it's just
It might have been considered middle class
maybe for his
when I
time.
was young.
Yeah, when you were young, right. But not when I was young. Up the street the houses got bigger. That house stayed the same. And it's just interesting to me because when I think back about even that, like having a garden in the middle of the black community in a little tiny house, is something that we don't even really think of anymore. We don't see it. We don't think of. I don't know if other
Yeah,
people were doing it then, but it seemed unique for him. And he was a unique person in our family. He was the patriarch of our family. He helped keep our family together.
that's right.
And when he died, things didn't go the same. They weren't the same. They never really been the same since he died. And it's a example of a transition in Black America. And I only say all of that again to say when I was growing up, the racial element, I mean, I knew him. And then I knew the people who knew him, and some of them were white, and they were cool, and they were real cool. I mean, like
Yeah,
best
his
friends.
buddies. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the guys who went to the bar, they were all real good friends. And so, what at what point? Like, let's transition back to what was high school like then for you, i- in terms of culture and St. Paul and how
Well,
you grew up.
that high school is a different thing for me. I went to private school. I went to a private Catholic school.
Yeah,
So I actually went to two different college prep Catholic schools. I started my freshman year at Durham Hall at the time. You know,
Creed was all girls,
Crete and Durham ends up merging, but not at this point.
right?
I went there for my freshman year. It was all girls, predominantly white. And when I say predominantly white, I mean predominantly white. there was a handful of students of color in the whole student body, right?
Right.
And so I still, for me, very comfortable in who I am, didn't really feel out of place. I was just coming to a point where I had some critical thoughts, so I was thinking deeper about things and what I was observing and how people were reacting to me being there, to Denise being there. She was a year older than me. I transferred after my first year there, and then I went to Archbishop Brady,
Yeah. Two
which
Catholic schools.
two Catholic schools.
Hmm.
Brady had usually still predominantly white, definitely predominantly white, but they had a little bit more students of color because St. Matthew's was a Catholic school on the west side, and some of those kids would end up going to Brady as an extension of choosing Catholic school.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit more there than we're at Durham, still predominantly white. So
Is it safe to say that you had a lot of white friends in school?
no,
No, you didn't.
I mean, I was friends with everybody, but socially, right? Although I felt very comfortable at school, I didn't do anything socially at school. And I would
Oh,
say,
you mean outside of school with those people from school?
no,
Yeah.
no.
Where'd you hang out? Where'd y'all hang out?
Well, people still to this day.
Roller skating rink?
Oh, we went to the roller skating rinks.
Did white people go to roller skating rink too?
I think there were probably white people at the roller skating rink, depending on which one you went to.
Okay.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we went to a few different roller skating rinks
Yeah.
when I was young.
When you were in high school, was there ever any fear that coming out of the roller skating rink, for example, somebody would get shot and killed?
Absolutely not.
That was never.
Not. No. No, I don't think I was going
Was
to.
was there ever even a time when people, like, somebody got stabbed at the roller skating rink when you were in high
No.
school?
No.
So
There,
people.
now
Go
there
ahead.
could have been a fist fight,
Yeah.
but it
Since
was
time
very little of
immemorial.
that.
Very little.
Actually, very little of that.
And so were these the
But you
most?
could easily observe a fist fight and observe those two people be friends the next week.
Explain that. What do you mean?
I mean, there were fist fights when I was young, a young teen or whatever. There would be people. There were families that so and so didn't like so and so, whatever. There could be a fist fight, and those people would actually be friends.
The next week.
It is what it is. We fought. We're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, and so were these the most?
I'm still that generation. Like listen,
Go ahead.
the violence in places where we shared together changed even after I became an adult. I'm legal age to be at the bar, at a club with other adults, right? I when I came of age, it was still safe in the club, in the bars. Like that wasn't happening.
So first, let's deal with the high school. Let's deal with the roller skate rink, because there's an evolution here that's unique to Minnesota because of Prince, and I want to talk about that and what the bar and club scene was like with Prince. I want to talk about that because I think that's an interesting historical piece. But first, let's talk about the roller skate rink. Are these the most popular? Everybody from the city, from the black neighborhood, goes to these roller skating rinks, or are there several dozens of roller skating rinks around the city that are more, more directly, deal with the people in their immediate neighborhood? Are the roller skating rinks neighborhood, and are there a bunch of them, or are there a few of them scattered through the city and everybody went to them?
I remember, in the metro,
In the metro.
several. I mean, yeah. I mean, I remember.
I'm trying to get a visual. Like, okay, let's say, for example.
But I'll tell you this:
when I was coming up, there were still roller skating rinks. There was a roller gardens. It was in St. Louis Park. There was Skateland. Skateland was out in, I think it was Brooklyn Park or Brooklyn.
Probably
somewhere in
northern suburb,
northern
yeah.
somewhere. So there were really only two roller skating rinks, and everybody went to them. So people came to them from St. Paul, they came to it from Minneapolis, they came to it from the east side and the south side. So, we didn't go to them all the time, but when you went, it was a clash of neighborhoods and culture. And was it like that when you were young, or were they more neighborhood
I
centrally
think they were
located?
neighborhood.
Okay, okay.
Like we didn't, if you went to roller gardens and you were from St. Paul, um,
You you,
like that was a thing.
you was making a big jump across the pond there.
That could have easily been a thing.
You could have gotten beat up over
Depending
that.
on who it just,
But
especially
not
for the
shot, but
girls.
not shot or stabbed.
Absolutely
But there
no.
could have been some tension, some
Could have been a little bit of
animosity. Yeah,
tension.
like you ain't from around here.
Could have been a little bit,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So that helps me paint a picture. But for the most part, even in high school, all of the racial undertones that existed, there was very little violence, and there was very little violence between the races on one another, like white kids jumping a black kids jumping a white kid just off of GP.
I'll tell you this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. You're right about, I would say that's true for my generation. Now, if you skipped between my generation, you have to think about my uncles, Louis and Stevie, who are only 10 to 12 years older than me.
Yeah.
Different thing for them. I think if you were talking to, I think that they experienced things as young people that were definitely that.
Right. You're talking now, that's more the 60s civil rights era.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
would have been, they would have been uh, people who graduated from high school in the 70s,
In the 70s.
early 70s to maybe 75.
Right. So they grew up as teens in the mid 60s.
Exactly.
At the height of the racial kind of tension in the 60s.
Well, right. And moving from Iglehart, Grandpa moved them into what was a white neighborhood.
Right.
Like you don't remember it as that,
No.
but think about it was that when I was a kid, and think about it what it was when they were young.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think they would tell you a whole different story than what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Was my
no,
experience.
Yeah, no, probably. But, even, and I'll say this about Uncle Junior, and I always loved Uncle Junior. I mean, I love Uncle Junior. I love Little Louie, and I love Uncle Louie. I mean, he's one of the coolest dudes there is.
You don't even know.
But
you
I'm
don't even know how cool he was.
Yeah, I mean, I just know him as being cool even to this day.
Yeah, he's definitely cool today. But you're not even understanding.
But my point about him is he did have a child with a white woman, and I know a bunch of Junior's friends to be white. I know he got a bunch of black friends, but he got
Yeah.
he has a lot of white friends
but
too.
these are people who went to mechanic arts.
So talk about mechanic arts, where grandpa and grandma,
Yeah, mechanic
your
arts.
mom
is-
and dad went to high
yeah.
school. Uncle Louis went to high school. My great grandfather Louis White went to high school. What was the dynamic of mechanic arts?
Well, at that time, people went to the school that was designated to their address. So you couldn't just up and decide, well, no, I'd rather go to this school over here. Well, it wasn't like that. So you have to think that mechanic arts district or who was assigned to go there based off of where they lived, that radius hit a circle of just about everybody's segregated neighborhood,
Mm.
right? So
And by that you mean if you know the history about St. Paul, even back in the 60s and 70s, and for a while maybe into the 80s, I want to say as well, St. Paul is still broken up into those early immigrant community racial neighborhoods where the Polacks are in one area and the German Irish are in one area, the Jews are in one area, the Mexicans are on the west side.
it's definitely
The
segregated that way.
It's segregated into races by neighborhood, but very close neighborhoods.
Right. Well, mechanic arts sat right, a block or two over from the state capitol building,
Right.
which is
Centrally located.
downtown.
Right.
So if you think about all the neighborhoods that would be surrounding that,
A little bit of everybody.
it's a little bit of everybody. It's the tip of everybody's neighborhood, really. So Yeah,
So you would say, so in that way, you would say that our family's history in the city is somewhat unique because of the cultural dynamic at Mechanic Arts
because of the cultural dynamic at Mechanic Arts, yes,
and the
and
racial
because
dynamic of the Mexican, Norwegian, interracial family.
right, but we're also talking about all of the men, not just playing sports, but being excellent,
Great athletes,
great athletes.
which does put you in a different category.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
sports is
it
another
elevates you
thing.
socially,
If you're participating in sports, now you're getting to know this student body different than you would if you just were in English class
no
together,
doubt,
right?
no
So
doubt.
now we are on a sports team. They are
Well,
th
hold on, Mom. I don't mean to, but I will say this. Uh, some of the elevation of an individual because of athletic success is superficial. Some of it is with merit because your athletes who excel, like the ones in our family, typically had to do so because they spent a lot of time playing sports, which usually meant less time doing other extracurricular things that were troublemaking, right? So even for myself, and I got in some trouble as a kid as well, but just as a matter of allocation of time, I had to spend 2 hours going back and forth to practice to a 2 hour practice on the north side of Minneapolis 4 days a week, plus the tournaments. On the weekends, I'm playing 3 games, 2 to 3 AAU games on Saturday and Sunday because we won championships every weekend. So we're playing to deep on Sunday afternoon. So there's just a different life that the athlete lives than your other, your average everyday person in the Black community. Is that fair?
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that didn't exist for them though, like AAU and that type of
True, but they were
organized
playing
sports.
though. They were playing at the park. They were playing at the
Right. But they also this is why they were excellent in more than one sport because it was very normal to play
every sport.
great in more than one sport because one sport had a season and then the next sport had a season and you participated in all of that. The type of sports that are happening when you are raised, it's different. It's actually thought to be detrimental for you to have interest in another sport because it's going to take away from your
Right,
traveling season, your AAU season,
right.
whatever.
It was all year round by the
Yeah,
time I was a kid.
they weren't experiencing that. They excelled at more than one sport because that's what you did if you were athletic. Most of them played more than one sport.
Like Grandpa Frank played football, baseball, and basketball,
Absolutely.
and
And
so
so
did
did
Junior,
Lewis.
and
Yeah,
so did Junior,
absolutely.
and did Grandpa Louie?
Yes.
He played all three.
So did Uncle Genie Boy.
Uncle Genie Boy, and Uncle Genie Boy was a boxer as well.
That's right.
And yeah, I ran into a guy. I told you this story. I ran into a guy at the State Fair. Walks up to me, white guy, from the East Side, and he was like, man, Royce, I just want to, he had a smile on his face already, and it was political in its nature. He was like, I support what you're doing, but I want to tell you something. He was like, your uncle, Genie Boy. He said, is that your uncle? He's like, is Genie Boy your uncle? I said, yeah, that's my great grandpa Lewis's brother. And he goes, man, I got to tell you, your uncle taught me how to box. Your uncle was a great boxing coach. He taught me how to box. He taught a bunch of my friends how to box back in the day. Like your Uncle Rock was a incredible boxing trainer and coach. And it's like I didn't really know Uncle Genie Boy that well, but it's just interesting that he had that influence through sports on the community. And here, one of the first people that's really come up to me during my life and tell me a personal story about Uncle Genie Boy ends up being a white man, right? So it just, and I only bring all this stuff up because the racial tension is so high in this country, and I have such a different experience with it that, it's great to have you in and give your perspective on how that whole thing unfolded over the course of those decades. So let's move to, so high school is, people are hanging out, things are settling down a little bit racially in the 70s. Fights aren't breaking out. Violence isn't happening amongst the youth. You could go to a roller skating rink. There might be a fist fight, but no fear that somebody's going to get shot. No fear that somebody's going to get stabbed. No real fear that there's even going to be an ongoing beef that's going to escalate into something really serious. More like,
Right.
we had a fist fight, a scuffle, and now we're moving on. Moving into the 80s, late 70s, 80s, when, uh, famously Prince, becomes huge, all world, right out of Minneapolis. And Prince is unique too in that when you think about Prince's style of music and you think about the influences and you think about his fan base, uh, Prince was, you could consider, he had like a classic 80s rock sound to him with a Little Richard slash James Brown persona, bravado, and vocal, vocal tone, vocal style. But the white folks in Minneapolis love Prince because he sounded like the rock and roll bands, the great classic rock bands of the time with a lot of his music. Uh, what's the element like where Prince is playing? Like people don't know this, but you were one of the extras in Purple Rain the movie.
Did we?
What? We can't say that you was an extra? I ain't what? You was extra. I mean, you won Apollonia in the movie, but
I was there.
you were there
I
at
was
First
there.
Ave.
Because
Tell
grandma
the
was
story.
cool. Because your grandma was cool. Because
Go
my
ahead.
mom was cool, and um, we knew somebody. We knew that the movie was happening and they needed extras, and so I'm at the college prep private Catholic school, high school, and I say, "Mom, tomorrow morning, can you drop us off at First Ave?
We gonna be in the movie.
Like we need to be there at 5:30 or whatever, because I'm not going to go to school. I'm going to go be in the movie." She's like, "What?" Right. So me and my me and my friend,
Yeah.
my good friend
Drop a name. What's the name?
Lori,
Lori. Okay.
uh, she and I both have to convince our moms that this is what we want to do the next day, because it just came up. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to do this next week, or we didn't have time. So we had to let our moms know that this is what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And her mom was like, wait a minute, I don't know if we can be skipping school.
For Prince's movie.
Yeah.
I mean, here's my thing.
I mean, her mom was an educator. Like her
Well,
mom
that,
was an
yeah,
educator.
fair.
My mom, however, was like,
Let's
I'll
say,
take you there. She didn't even think
I
about it.
mean,
You can go.
I feel it, but at the same time, in retrospect, Prince is one of the greatest musicians of all time, and Purple Rain is probably one of the greatest biopic musicals of all time.
He was a big damn deal. He was a big damn deal. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a bad deal to get out of school for that type of thing. They take kids out of school. These kids have gone to e-learning. Okay, I wish more kids would be let out of
This
school
is
to
you,
go
though.
to.
This is how you're thinking about it.
Yeah,
How one of your kids now saying they were going to stay home from school to go be a part of a movie. But back then,
it was edgy.
what are you talking about?
Okay,
You're
so
not.
and
But my mom was cool. My mom said, absolutely, I'll
were the
take you. And
majority
she
were the
did.
majority of the people that were at the movie as extras white?
A lot of white people.
A lot of white people. Okay,
Would I say the majority? I don't know.
70-30?
A lot of, but here's the thing. They shot crowd scenes in Minneapolis and LA.
Okay.
So some of what you see in the movie are LA people.
Yeah, but in LA it
extras.
was white.
Yeah, right.
The whole movie was.
Right. I would just say the crowd scenes look predominantly white.
Yes. Okay, so now tell me the difference between, and I bring this up because it's a very important cultural piece of history for Minnesota in terms of the transition and the influence music has on the local nightlife, right? Like when you guys are going to clubs now and you're in your 20s, Prince is big, the Minneapolis Sound is big, Morris Day and the Time and LaSalle and Jesse Johnson and Sheila E. and the whole thing is popping off. Are black people and white people hanging out together to go listen to Morris Day and Prince? And is it dangerous?
I would tell you this. I think you have the time.
Yeah, break it down.
So no. Where those musicians are playing in bands together, where you could actually go to the club where they were playing, that didn't look like Morris Day and the Time and Jesse Johnson. By the time those things came along, they couldn't just go play live at a club somewhere.
They were too big already.
Right. But they're going to show up where some other bands are playing or whatever. Like they were definitely visible around the music scene, but
Too big to be playing at a local
too big to be
nightclub,
playing.
bar. Okay, well,
There's some people
okay.
now. Wait a minute. Let's talk about.
All right.
We can talk about Alexander O'Neal because this is
Alexander O'Neal.
Let's talk about Alexander O'Neal. Who?
Go ahead.
Wow. Let's listen. What a talent. These are some of the people out of Minneapolis that don't have that type of
Name recognition.
that type of rah-rah. But this man.
Talented.
Now, Alex had a contract and a record out, and he still was going to go play somewhere. I mean, so he probably shouldn't have been. Somebody was probably mad about it, but he did. So, there was a very strong music scene around town. And there were a lot of popular bands that you don't know the name of because they didn't stay together that long. But those musicians end up playing with those big bands and go on to be musical directors for even bigger names than what you think are coming out of Minneapolis. So very strong music scene.
Okay, so even the places where, let's say, a nightclub where the music of the time was being played. Let's say those artists aren't there, like Morris Day and the Time, but whatever the local club was where Morris Day and the Time's music was being played in the 80s, are these places where you had to worry about getting shot coming out of the club or somebody getting stabbed in the club or, gang beef and that kind of thing in the club and on the night scene in Minneapolis?
No. I don't think we really have a problem with violence happening in the nightclubs until
The advent of gangster rap?
late 80s. Late 80s.
Would you say that you saw the advent of gangster rap as a marker in time that increased what you saw in terms of violence in the clubs, in the night scene, in the nightlife?
I think you could draw a relationship, but I don't know. I mean, there's obviously other things have to do with that, but yeah, I mean, we don't in Minnesota anyway, we don't really have that type of problem where the things that are happening in the parking lot. You also have to understand that what the laws were around liquor and when the club had to close.
Tell me, I don't know. I'm not
So
familiar.
so you had to close at 1. Like you could
Okay.
only sell liquor to a certain
Right. Cutoff was
ti
like 11.
like cut off. Not it wasn't 11,
Okay. What
but
was it? 12?
but nobody was staying open after 1, and if you
Gotcha.
did have a club that you wanted to keep open until 2 or 3, you couldn't serve liquor. So what was the purpose in that? You know what I mean? Now, who's gonna do that? Um, so a lot of stuff happened in the parking lot because people didn't wanna the club was closing, but people didn't wanna go home. So there were times when we didn't even go out to go into the
You
nightclub
came
or
for the
into the
after.
bar.
You came
We
for the
came to the parking lot.
you came to what was going on in the parking lot. And still you didn't have the type of violence in the 80s that you see now. Like
No,
you
but
couldn't if you're a if there was a event to go on downtown Minneapolis. And I guess would you say that it was true that maybe in some of the predominantly black neighborhoods where there was drugs and crime already in the 80s that uh, maybe your local bars are where some of that violence was taking place
probably.
versus downtown Minneapolis and the
Right.
metro, sort of big club scene?
Right.
Okay, so if you were in Minneapolis today, there's almost a guarantee that there's going to be a fight or something, probably a shooting, if there's anything that's in a parking lot that people can walk up to, drive up to, and have access from their car to the rest of the crowd of people in downtown Minneapolis. It wasn't like that.
It was not like that.
So when your mom in your early 20s and you're going and you're hanging out with the grown-ups, there was no fear like, call me as soon as you get home because I need to know if you even made it home or not because of how dangerous it is.
No, when that scene started getting, too violent, I stopped going.
How old were you when you stopped
I
going?
don't know, I mean, I don't really see it only took me a couple incidents.
What time period is this?
Mm, my 20s, like,
So in the 90s.
in the 90s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I would say
What happened?
by night, you know,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of a current of violent things happening around town, and you're right. You're gonna probably gonna have a little bit more drama at one of the more neighborhood bars or whatever. Not necessarily a nightclub where it's a cross section of people. I'm not going out after at 92, 93.
And so what did you see? And I was born in 91. So now, we're all the way up until me being born here. What did you see happen between the 70s and the 90s as a black woman in Minnesota, in the Twin Cities, in the black community, having contact with multiple communities culturally, multiple ethnic, racial communities? What happened between the 70s and the 90s? Like to the people. I mean, we know drugs, obviously the drug wave, okay? We understand drugs hit, cocaine hit, crack hit, okay. There was a change in the music. But what happened to the people? Like what were the,
Well, those aren't small things that you just
of
said.
course, I mean, they're huge, but
Those aren't
what
small
are the small
things.
things that happened? Like,
But the one thing I will just tell you, as someone who was born and raised here, and parents were born and raised here, it felt like as it was happening, it the way I perceived it and what it felt like is that we had people moving here that weren't from here,
mm,
right? So it felt like there was a certain um like it wasn't necessarily a criminal element, right? It may have been that, but it didn't feel like that's what it was. But I think that we had a lot of people move here that weren't from here.
where were they from?
Who knows? But I think people have
You
a
know where they
hot.
were from. Where were they from?
No, I really don't know. They could have been from anywhere,
Where did they say they were from?
right? I mean,
Where did
listen,
people say they were coming from?
listen. The narrative, the public narrative, is something that is bullshit. So I mean,
Okay, I'll tell you where they came from. They came from Chicago. They came
maybe,
from Detroit. They
maybe,
came from St. Louis.
maybe.
Well, all I'm saying
But
is,
in any metro,
yes,
those places that you're talking about,
yeah,
Chicago, Detroit, St. Louis, also had an influx of people from
from
those other cities,
from
from
where?
Minnesota, from wherever. Like, listen,
Yeah, no.
I mean,
I
what?
think I think no. I think what happened was I think historically what happened from the way I read it.
Right, but who wrote what
No
you
doubt.
read?
No, you're right. I
Who wrote
mean,
what you read?
yeah, because a lot of people that from Minneapolis went somewhere else and caused wreaked
Come on
havoc.
now.
So you're right
But I
about that.
but I will be honest and say at that time in my life
Yeah.
when we just got to the point where I mean, I don't drink. I've never been a drinker, so it's really I don't really if I go out, it's because I'm going to hear a band. The music is good, and let me just tell you this: you we want to make it seem like this was just this really everyone was nice to each other. It wasn't that.
Yeah.
It wasn't that. A lot of the clubs that you hear of that you think are famous or whatever were big time clubs when I was young. We weren't necessarily welcome there every night that it was open. We went if there was a cool DJ. Like we called it the Black Night. First Ave had a night,
For black folks.
a night.
And all the other
Williams
nights
Pub had.
you weren't even allowed.
It's not that you weren't allowed. You wouldn't go there. The music wasn't for you.
What was the music like on White Night?
It was white.
What kind of music? Who was it?
I don't know. I
Bob
wasn't there.
Dylan?
I wasn't there.
You weren't. It was what?
I can't share my testimony. I wasn't
It
there.
was Journey. Don't act like grandma. You don't like some of them white classic rock
I
bands.
love music. I love music,
on.
but I wasn't going.
You didn't like David Bowie, or they was
Not
playing him on
really.
Black Night.
Not really.
Fame, like,
I mean, that's a different.
taking over.
I mean, we might have listened to some of that, but what I'm saying to you
Come on.
is that it wasn't as harmonious as you think it was.
Okay.
It just wasn't.
Okay.
So
But
almost,
it wasn't violent.
it wasn't. Yeah, there was a time
So there
that it
wasn't
violent.
this. There wasn't this. Utopia, racial harmony. But it wasn't. It wasn't violent even within the Black community like it is now, and there certainly wasn't like a racial animosity like that had proceeded from the '60s or that you now see today. Because like now I think about the clubs now, and I don't really go anymore. I haven't been to a club in forever, downtown Minneapolis for obvious reasons. Because every weekend somebody's getting shot. 2, 3 people are getting shot now.
Right, but you also have to.
But they're very segregated now. The clubs.
Right, but you also have to think about what's happening outside of clubs, just on the street. So
Yeah.
by the time you hear that a shooting has happened or some sort of drama has happened at a place, i- was it the patrons of that business?
Or
Or was
somebody.
it
Yeah.
is it just some drama that happened as we were driving by or whatever?
Yeah.
Like young people,
Yeah. No, it's actually the patrons. I mean, people.
sometimes maybe it is,
No,
but
a lot of times. I'm telling you, I'm close enough to know. I'm young enough to know that part of it. There are some instances where it's just in the immediate area because of the traffic in that area. But a lot of stuff is spilling out over from inside the club. But there's a lot of stuff that's going on in the club. Like 2 weeks ago, guy got
right, but we're at a whole nother level. Like
now.
what's happening now, I don't know that we can even talk about the level of violence and just the disconnect.
Is it shocking to you?
It's more than shocking. I'm afraid of it.
Because you got 2 sons.
Well, I'm afraid of it for all the reasons.
Right.
And for me, it's not just going out and being social as an adult somewhere where they serve alcoholic beverages and we're going to listen to music or a live band. It's not that. It's the concert. It's the going downtown to have dinner. It's the wherever you go and there's a mix of people because things are happening all over the cities.
Yeah.
Yeah, downtown seems especially like it's concentrated downtown. It seems that way, but maybe just the media about things is that, right? But things are happening all over.
It's out of control all
It's
over.
out of control, and I don't know
Yeah.
that we need to even have a conversation about race or any of it. It's just really now it's just out of control.
Yeah.
It's almost too late. It's almost too late to have a conversation about what feeds it, what dynamics make it so. It's just too out of control for that.
Well, we don't have to have a conversation about what feeds it because we gotta figure out what's going on. I mean, what did you see? Okay, so I'm growing up in the '90s. What were some of the things that you were thinking about in the '90s, raising a young Black man by yourself? Dad's not really around. Had a bunch of good influences in the community. I can say that. I can testify to that. I mean, there were bad influences too that you would come across, but I think, and I give you a lot of credit for, uh, you know, doing a good job, and the rest of the community doing a good job, and there were more positive Black male influences than I think the outside world would give the community credit for. Like
That's the narrative.
that's a bullshit narrative. Yeah.
That's the bullshit
It's
narrative.
like all of the Black men must be, encouraging, this crazy ass behavior. And when I think back on,
Or no, not that the narrative is that they're absent.
oh well, that's just
That
yeah.
they're not
that's
encouraging
that's
or
straight up, that's straight up
discouraging it.
bullshit. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
just that is what you call that is politics with French fries for middle white America and Fox News.
Well, right.
Yeah, that's bullshit. But you know, when I think about my after school program, when I think about my school, when I think about my sports, my athletic teams and sports that I participated in, there were my barber, the barber shop. There were a ton of very positive black role models, and even in my own family, right? My grandfather, my uncles, my great grandfather. And so I was fortunate in that way. I can't say that obviously that's not true for everybody. And I do think when you're an athlete, uh, people tend to deal with you a little differently when you're growing up. And the way that you carry yourself also, because I remember being at the after school program, and there were some problem kids, and there were some kids that didn't have the same upbringing that I did. They didn't have a mom like you, because I would see when their mom would come and pick them up. And I'm not saying their mom wasn't a good mom, but it was a different mom, and she had different things going on. And you know, and when the dad may have came, he might have smelled like marijuana, or he might have had his pants sagging, or whatever the case may be. So the way that I grew up allowed people to deal with me a certain way as well, and I was given more chances. And part of it, I only say that because part of it, I don't think people realize how easily you are influenced by the rest of the people around you. As much as you tried, and I want to hear your take on that, but as much as you tried to, put books in my room and make sure that I went to good schools and talk to me about life and things, and, and even the other influences in my family who were similar, grandma, grandpa, uh, you are heavily influenced by the children that are immediately around you, and what it's almost a survival mechanism in a sense, because you don't want to get picked on, you don't want to get bullied, you don't want to get jumped or beat up, you don't want to be disliked, you want to try and kind of blend in. When you're taller than everybody, it's hard to blend in already. So you could easily be raised the right way and still pulled into a lot of bullshit. And I
For
see that
sure.
in a lot of young black people in our community they got two parents, or they got parents that are actively involved, or they got grandparents who are raising them. Yeah, sure, that's not ideal, but better than no parents. But the kids who have no parents, um, the kids who have no real structure at home, or people who, let's say, are watching them, checking on them, making, kind of in some ways living by the old times where you just send your kid out into the street until the street lights come on.
That's part there. That's part of it.
That a
That's a part of
generation,
it. That's kind of the part of it that we don't
a
ever
generation
talk
of black
about.
people grew up where you stayed outside, then the streets changed. And
Yeah,
you were still sending your kid out there, and they were coming back with a whole different mentality than when when your generation went out in the street and came back, still had some sanity. Now you send, like, I would never let, look, my two sons right now, I would never let them. It's different for Benjamin because he lives in Apple Valley, and Apple Valley is Apple Valley's changing quick too, but uh, and Apple Valley's more than a stone's throw from the Twin Cities. Apple Valley changing quick, but
right.
I would never let little Royce just go where he wants to go and come home when he wants to come home. I mean, so when you say remember normal, that used to be normal, but something happened in the community where
For
that no
sure.
longer is safe to do, because your kid comes home, is influenced by something more dangerous and self-destructive out there than before. Am I reading that right, or what do you think?
I think the change has been more gradual than we're giving it credit for.
Yeah.
I think it's real easy. Someone used to say, "Follow stupid kid home, stupid people answer the door."
Right?
Right. But I think, so we want to think that we see a kid that's struggling with authority, acting out, and the one thing we automatically want to take away from that is that they have no home training. There's something wrong at home, something wrong with the parents. And then you make all these judgments about what you think those things are. But I think there's something to be said for maybe being raised by your parents, maybe extended family, and we haven't adjusted. Like, we just the mindset has not adjusted to the new normal. You
Right.
still think that that it's adequate for you to trust the school with your kid.
Right.
Because when you were coming up, you trusted the school with yourself and your parents trusted them with you. And you haven't, nothing has happened in your life to make you rethink that thing. So there's like this gradual, subtle change happening where people aren't, you know, making the necessary adjustment, the factual adjustment. And so I don't know that it's necessarily all the time a parent that doesn't love their kid or doesn't prioritize their kid or doesn't want all the same things that we want. We want to prioritize safety. We want to make sure they're learning. I think there's a very long list of things that we'd have to talk about that have changed.
Yeah. Well, let's start with one. Off the top of your head, which, because the one I think of the most is from when I was a kid in the 90s. And again, you know, I told you the other day that I look at the newspapers and some of the kids that I grew up with in elementary school are, leading, leading some of these gangs, big criminal indictments. I'm reading the names, the legal names, and I'm like, whoa, I know that name. I'm seeing a guy get shot and killed. I know that name. I remember that kid in school. I remember when he used to love basketball and the basketball got too competitive and too good and he didn't make that traveling team that he wanted to make and he never looked back. He went from a gym to the street and that was it. I saw that happen in my own life. And sometimes I feel bad about that because I remember some of these kids when they were still innocent, when they still had that innocence in their eyes, when they still had that genuine sense of joy and wonder and curiosity, and you could still reach them in the classroom. They were still somewhat interested in learning, right? And then, yeah, I mean, I also remember when kids started smoking weed. I remember when kids started, drinking. I remember when kids started going from coming home late to not coming home at all, and running the streets like that. And it, the school is a big deal. The school is one of the under acknowledged pieces of the black community, and it's probably one of the biggest pieces that made me start to think about politics differently. I got old enough; my kids are in school, and I just started to look at our community in totality and go, who's really in charge of the schools? Who's really running the schools? I mean, and I looked at it from a political standpoint. When you're a kid and you're at school, you don't understand the politics. I mean, when you're a black kid and you go to public school and you're being taught by a liberal white woman, which is the majority of the teachers, right? You're being taught by a liberal white woman. You don't really think this is a liberal white woman. You're a young black kid. You think these are all white people. You don't even distinguish the politics because that's not something that we talk about. Now it's more talked about, to younger kids, and they're seeing it online. But when I was coming up, you didn't even talk about politics in the school sense. It was subtle. The curriculum was still politically motivated, but you didn't talk about politics. You didn't think about it. When we were kids, me and my black friends or any of the kids at school, we'd be like, "Oh, this is a white teacher," or "This is a black teacher," or "This is we didn't think about politics. But when I got old enough to start looking at it seriously, I'm like, whoa, a lot of Democrat-run public schools in the hood, and lot of failing, proficiency ratings in the cities. And is there a direct correlation between an individual's, let's say, motivation to learn, an individual's intellectual curiosity or their intellectual development and their propensity toward violence? I don't know, but it sure seems that way. It would surely seem that way to me. And I say that even in my own sense and with you is like, I grew up with a mom who had books and read books, and I saw you reading books, and I had books, and I read books, and I had a grandmother who used to take me to the movies every single weekend. And people may look at that and go, oh, well, Hollywood's perverse, or Hollywood is misinformation, or Hollywood is also a part of the problem. But the fact that there were story arcs, that there were storylines and story arcs, and there was an archetype in the story, and most of these stories follow the biblical archetype of there being a hero and a sacrifice, and a greater good, and sacrificing yourself for that greater good. You could look at any movie across any genre, and it typically follows a similar story arc.
Right.
And the fact that I was seeing that was a form of reading, right? In retrospect, every
Well,
weekend.
well, all of those things are a form of exploring your own imagination,
Right,
right?
right.
And so we have to talk about lowered standards and if your imagination is encouraged,
Right.
at what age, and what effect that has. I think
Do you think do you think higher standards encourage imagination, or lower standards?
I think higher standards would encourage that. I just, um, I'm somebody that believes, and I mean, I've said this to you before. I've said it, my close group of people around me. Uh, I, I- I've always thought that public school is the results and the measurements and any stat that we can see on paper tells us that if we're going to boycott anything, it should be that
The public schools?
public schools
Yeah,
for real,
yeah.
right? Because, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying let's boycott the public schools. What I'm saying is that for me, I think we can see the gradual change there, and it probably relates to a lot of social
Ills.
ills that we see happening. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Well,
what and how we've failed to use it as a measurement and be honest with ourselves, right?
yeah, no doubt.
So
But do you think it's on purpose? I mean, because I kind of get the sense,
I
it,
don't know that I don't think that we can give anybody credit
yeah.
for the on purpose.
Well, let
I
me.
think it's on purpose to not correct it.
Well, here, let me tell you what I mean. Because just in the same way that you could be a young black man who was raised relatively well and be culled culled into the horde of your peers, right? And the way that they think. I do believe that teachers, out of professional survival, or maybe just a casual, sort of loose social thought process, can also be pulled into continuing on the status quo the way that it is. You see that across society. So it's not different for teachers. So in that way, when I say on purpose, I mean from the people uh, who have a bird's eye view of it. See, there's a real contention, or I would say a crisis, a cultural and political crisis in our country that revolves around race, where people are on two sides of a line and they fail to see the power, the purveyors of power and the status quo in the middle, who perpetuate these things, and the race narrative becomes easy for them when the story is much more complex. Not complex like two black people shooting each other has some deep reason, because to me it's just like if you pick up a gun and shoot another black man for some trivial reason and your life isn't threatened, you aren't really doing it out of genuine self-defense, there's not really a good justification. I mean, you
Right.
can't really give me an excuse. But if we're talking about the way that an institution like the public schools work, uh, it it would appear to me to be advantageous to both political parties up until the advent of Donald Trump and the MAGA movement in the Republican Party, where both political parties benefited from the slow, gradual destruction of the black community. The Democrats, in the sense that it's easier to tell dumb people or people who are poorly educated to vote for us if they don't know any better. And for Republicans, you got a fail-safe boogeyman that you can always point to for the failure of your political involvement as a party. And the great example I give is like how much Republican, my great grandfather was Republican, but how much Republican representation was there in his community or in our community? Very little. That can't be by accident, you know. And now that I'm in the party, I see it even more clear where it's all of these Republicans who watch Fox News are like, the black communities are out of control, but none of them want to go into it and say, you know, we have a we have a better plan for you. Like they'll say it on television or they'll say it on social media, but they don't want to really go door to door. Flip side of that coin is it's dangerous to go door to door in the black community in some sense. Hell, black people don't want to go door to door in our own community. So you see how both sides, and one was perpetuated by the other. Now you have this snowball effect where two groups of people are standing on two sides of what appears to be a racial divide. It's more of a political divide, but it goes right down to education almost directly where, I mean, the source code, and people got to realize this, it's my honest opinion that the development of one's spirit is directly connected to the development of their intellect.
Absolutely.
That the spirit and the
For
intellect
sure.
are inextricably linked.
For sure.
So, of course, people who have a stunted intellectual development are going to be more prone to any number of personal problems. Just basic logic shit like I shouldn't shoot this guy over what this girl told me, or I shouldn't shoot this guy over a pair of sneakers that are overpriced anyway, or like because they're Italian designer sneakers, or I shouldn't shoot this guy because he lives on that block and I live on this block. And it's like, I don't know, fun to supplement war in our own community because we're bored. Like when we could be reading something that develops our mind intellectually, but we'd rather, I don't know, simulate, you know, war games in our community. I mean, I almost see it that way. Like some of these young people, I see them actually simulating war at a community level because it's exciting. You know, because it's like an adrenaline thing. Because there's no real legitimate justification. Like in the '70s, when I read back about organized crime, right? And you just had this NBA gambling scandal and the American mafia, you know, the Italian mob is connected to it. And I think back about like old stories of old organized crime, even that was depicted in our in our movies, Italian mob, you know, some of the black crime figures like Bumpy Johnson in Harlem and the Irish mob, the Jew mob, right? In Minnesota and St. Paul, there was a huge influential Jew mob, in St. Paul and Minneapolis. There, the crime and the violence was largely predicated around some type of business interest. There was some type of racket that was a predicate for the violence. These young kids don't have any rackets going. Sure, they may be
No.
selling fentanyl or doing fentanyl, or they might be selling pills or doing pills, but they're mostly selling pills to do the pills. They're selling the drug to feed the habit, to be able to pay for the habit. And I'm not saying there's not organized crime because the majority of organized crime in America today is ran and supplemented by transnational organizations that find individuals in certain places who you probably never see or know that they're doing what they're doing, who are feeding drugs to a given area, like the cartels, right? And we see that the Mexican cartels have point people who are usually Latino or Hispanic. In some cases, they're other races, but mostly they're Mexican or they're Honduran or whatever the case may be. And they are supplying drugs to a bunch of people who are selling it on a market, but the violence isn't about that. I mean, the violence, if you're black and you live in a black community, you know how much senseless violence there is. Like, for example, there was a story in Atlanta where a guy tried to, say something to a young lady at a bowling alley, and, she must have rejected him, maybe got disrespectful because, people tend to talk with a little more disrespect now than when even I was growing up. But she rejected him, and he came outside and he shot her, killed her in the parking lot of the bowling alley. Now you look at a story like that, and your immediate sane mind goes to there had to be something else going on there that would make him do that. But my cautionary mind goes, no, people are really that crazy now. There's really that lack of so, like what's your take on what you see just from what you hear from the criminal element coming out of the cities or in Minnesota, let's say, as a Minnesota resident, the crime now versus the crime at any other time when you've been alive?
Again, I think that nowhere that I know of are we having an honest conversation about all of the things that, um, the obvious things, right? That don't require all the research and the think tank. The
Yeah.
obvious things. We're all so disconnected that we just don't have any urgency to get underneath what's factual for us, what we can obviously see.
Like what? What do you think?
So I just think that so so we what you asked before was do I think that it's on purpose? Like is it intentional? Is it set up for it to be this way? Is there a
Yeah.
setup for it to be this way
Yeah. By somebody.
by somebody? It's hard for me to wrap my head around that because I just don't know that anybody is paying attention to anything enough to construct such a thing. I don't wanna give anybody
You don't
credit
think
for
they're
that.
that good?
I just don't think they're that good.
Yeah.
It does become intentional, though, when you see the results of a thing
And you don't change it.
and you do nothing to change it. You do absolutely nothing to change it. So, we could talk about this we could take that dynamic and look at it a lot of things from that perspective, right? Um, a candidate who's looking for votes in the voter. Like, let's just be real. There's lies being told, there's lies being accepted.
Yeah. No doubt.
And the person who's accepting lies also lies to themselves. That's why, right? If you lied to me,
That's true.
if you lied
Amen.
to me, if you misled me about something that I really care about, and I trusted you and I put my faith in you,
Yeah.
and I find out down the line that you intentionally lied to me, I'm coming back. I'm coming back. You're going to have to explain to me why you did that because I cared about that thing. That was a passionate thing. I'm invested in that thing. And I listened to you and it messed the results up. And I had a stake in the results. I'm pissed. You gotta come and answer for that. That's not what's happening here. That's not what's happening here on any level. Somehow or another, we just lying to ourselves.
Yeah. We just keep going. We go
We're
on.
just, oh,
You
I'm
lied? Okay, cool.
we're almost listening to blatant lies and in our head telling ourselves that, oh, I know this is a lie, but
I gotta accept it because
I'm gonna find a polite way to accept it so that this person doesn't feel the feel the angst of me accusing of them of being dishonest. It's just it's we're just really way too far gone. We really are way too far
yeah,
gone
and it's across the board. But let's
across the board. So honestly, that I can only answer it honestly. That really is how I feel about it. So when
yeah,
I hear about things, I'm just
yeah.
like, wow, man, I'm so glad I am the age I am and that I was raised at the time that I was, and that it seems very easy for me to have um, been able to have some critical thought along the way. Uh, I just see that as more and more challenging. I'm afraid for, I'm afraid for what's coming. This last summer, this last summer, and I don't listen to news. I've tuned out of news little by little over a period of time. So it's been a long time that I'm tuned into the local news directly on the television or whatever, online, whatever. I'm not reading the newspaper, nothing. but it still influences my social media. So I am in real time seeing things that are happening in my neighborhood. When we're at a point where the 11-year-olds are shooting each other at the park on a Tuesday afternoon, what what do you what are we to do with that? What
Yeah.
if who is the community? Like, who is the community, right? We want to say because these are Black kids that live on a side of town that we know to be a thing, that we've
Mm-hmm.
labeled a thing, then we automatically think that that community is a specific group of people that also are part of a narrative that at the end of the day, who cares? I want to know who cares. I don't really, who cares enough to get underneath why it's happening and can get behind some ideas on how we can change it, like right now.
Mm.
I don't want to have a meeting to have the meeting, have a meeting about an email about when we're going to have the meeting. It's urgent. What can we do? That's not happening. It's not happening.
Right. No, 100%.
I mean, if it is happening, I'm not saying that there aren't people that
If it is happening, it ain't
listen.
front and center.
Listen, I'm not the only
Eh,
person who cares. There's
People
people
care.
there's people who care.
Yeah, but here's the
There's
thing.
people who care, and
Go ahead.
there are people reacting, and there are people hurting, and there are people with the
Yeah, but
urgency.
but hold on,
It's
let
not,
me ask you
none
this.
of that. None of that energy is none of that. And I'm not saying that energy isn't making a difference because maybe it's making a difference in some way that we just are not hearing about. What I'm saying is none of the energy ever changes the damn fake narrative.
And okay, that's what I was trying to get to. What is the prevailing narrative? I'm just going to come out and say it, and you tell me what you think. When I was coming up in the 90s, the way that I viewed the world wasn't through a racial context whatsoever. Even when I was in the Black community in the 90s around all Black folks, there may have been things said about white folks or white America, but there wasn't an animosity of just a I don't even know how to describe it. There's like a smoldering animosity now where everybody wants to jump on the racial right away. It wasn't like that when I was growing up. And for me, especially, like I said earlier, I go with my grandfather to his job in Richfield, and he was the director of Park and Rec, Park and Recs in the city of Richfield. And the city of Richfield was and still is predominantly white. Now there are a lot of Latinos and Somalis and some Black folks living in Richfield too, but still probably predominantly white in Richfield and Bloomington, that Bloomington area, although it's changing too. But even at his job, where he was the only Black person working there, I loved those people and they loved me. Like I used to look forward to going to my grandfather's job at the Department of Park and Rec in Richfield so much. Like if there was ever a day I wasn't at school and you had to work and I got to go with my grandpa Frank to his job,
It was going to be a good day.
it was so exciting. And what's crazy about it was like it was one of those it was one of those city municipality buildings that held the Park and Rec administration that was
Right.
open to the public, so they would have arts and craft activities
Different stuff happening
for
all
the
the time.
elderly, right? I remember when the Asian kids came through and they had to break dance in the little spot for a
I
minute,
can't.
and what 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 I can't say that
No,
is
you
that
can say that.
racist?
No, you can say that.
Hey, the Asian kid,
There's nothing wrong with you saying it.
my boys from the Asian community in Richfield used to they had a day for a little stint of time. It wasn't for a long time, but I remember there was a little stint where they had a little area of the rec building and they were breakdancing. And I was trying to breakdance, but my feet were too big.
Your feet were too big, Royce.
My feet were too big to breakdance. I could dance. Now I got great rhythm. But as a 11-year-old, 12-year-old kid, kind of uncoordinated with a size 14, it's hard to whip those 14s around like the little Asian kids were. You feel me?
I
It was
I
tough.
can see
It was
it being
tough.
a
I think
problem.
today I could break dance. Once I have a full grown body, I might start break dancing again. My point is, I looked forward to going there so much. And the white people that worked there were so nice to me. I used to run around the whole building. And my grandpa be like, man, you got to sit down somewhere. And the rest of the white people in there be like, man, let him hang out. Ain't nobody
Right.
else here.
No, right.
He can run around. Ain't nobody, it was that homey. You know what I mean? And so I just, the narrative to me personally is dishonest because it seems like we tell ourselves that we only have the choice to fail because there's so much racial disadvantage for us. And even if you wanted to accept that narrative at some level and say, let's look at the history of this country, let's look at something like the Homestead Act, right? And how, white immigrant settlers or descendants were given the right to purchase land at a very low cost early on in this country's history to proliferate, a population big enough to defend this country's constitution, this country's ideas, right? Okay, let's look at slavery. Let's look at segregation. All of that is fine, and there's a place for it. But if we follow that story arc, we arrive at the education system after the Civil Rights Act, post segregation, during a time period where Black Americans collectively make up one of the most wealthiest nations in the world. We have 2 million Black millionaires, the most of any time in this nation's history, yet our children keep shooting each other younger and younger. I mean, you got to tell me if we're going to whittle it all the way down to the disadvantage by race, the disadvantage that we have institutionally is still in the schools. It's still in the schools, and the other thing that's unique to the Black community that you can't overlook is our popular culture, our music, and now our reality TV. Because it's not just the music anymore. Now, the reality TV has become an extension of the hip hop culture, right? This is
Right.
totally unique to us. Now, am I saying that the Real Housewives of Atlanta is that much different than the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills? No, same sort of sell, with a different twist, but the message of the rap music is different. You listen to Sabrina Carpenter, and you listen to NBA YoungBoy, the message is totally different. Still superficial music, still popular, still have a young crowd of people who haven't formulated their worldview yet. But one's talking about teen bop love, like Justin Bieber, teeny bop love, and the other one's talking about riding around a 1 square mile radius looking for the Black people that live right next to me to shoot and kill. And so how do we continue to say, and I go back to Farrakhan and Malcolm X, a lot of conservatives don't like him. I remember I was on KSTP interviewing with Tom Hauser, and he asked me a question about Louis Farrakhan on purpose because a lot of your conservatives really dislike Louis Farrakhan, one, because he's Muslim, another.
Well, they believe him. The narrative there is that he's anti-Semitic.
There you go. Well, exactly. Yeah, that's
And
that
this
too.
is just
Well, that's a
listen,
cover. The real thing that they
it's the easy narrative.
Yeah, it's easy.
But so let's just
Hold
call,
on, wait. The first thing that they reject is that he's Muslim, and they regard the Nation of Islam as a proto Black nationalist, which is also a very frowned upon term. Now, I think the term nationalist is becoming so mainstream again because of President Trump that people who identify as Black nationalists are being looked at differently than the Black nationalists of the past, like the Black Liberation Army, stuff like that. But so first of all, it's based on him being Muslim and the Nation of Islam, but then it's also because they say that he's anti-Semitic. But my point in bringing him up was, I remember Minister Louis Farrakhan always saying it like it was. I mean, he was critical of race and he talked about race, but he never talked about race in a way that shied away from that gave Black people an excuse for their own behavior. So that's the difference between Minister Louis Farrakhan and Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton. Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton talk about race in a totality in a sort of absolute way where no matter what the circumstances is, it always comes back to black people have an excuse for the crisis in our community because of what white people have done or are doing. Farrakhan says, hey, there's racism for sure in more ways than you probably realize. And let me hip you to those ways that you don't realize, but let's be honest. You niggas is walking around with your pants sagging. You see how I'm dressed? There's a reason. See, and part of me, and the reason I bring Farrakhan up time and time again, and I'll die on this hill, is because part of me believes even the Republican Party would much rather see the continuation of chaos and self-destruction in the black community before they ever see the rise of a prominent resurgence of black men walking around with suits and bow ties. I genuinely believe, and I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying in the power structure of the Republican Party, even I'm experiencing that. I am firsthand experiencing how the same, and we call them rhinos. We call them Republicans in name only. We call them establishment Republicans, right? These are never Trumpers. They don't like President Trump for a reason. But these same people who talk about how bad Minneapolis is don't want to see a person like me educate the people of Minneapolis on how politics work.
No, like let's just call it. Let's just bring it up.
All right.
Let's just bring up an example of what you're
Yeah,
talking
please
about and not make
proceed.
it personal.
Okay.
Let's not make it about you and me and whatever.
Yeah.
Let's talk about where this has played itself out before. Let's go back to the Black State of the Union. The State of Black America, once a year, televised by C-SPAN, public radio. This is Tavis Smiley gathering a group of Black people that the Black community across this country knows, right? As expert in a whole lot of different ways, from academia to politicians to Hollywood to anywhere from your, um, Dr. Cornel West to Dick Gregory to whoever. Having a panel discussion once a year on the state of Black people in the United States of America, right? I go back sometimes because that now no longer happens.
Yeah.
Not by accident.
Not by accident.
And
Right.
and nothing else has fulfilled it.
Right.
Not by accident. Right?
Right. Because there's not a consensus anymore. But go ahead.
Well, there's a whole lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Right? But we feel like we have this free speech now because a few people got some podcasts and whatever. But nothing has filled the gap of that. I go back and I listen to clips and it's so blatant that the things that you hear being said as those years go on, as they meet and they go on, and this manifests into Dr. Cornel West and Tavis Smiley putting out a book that is a contract with Black America.
Yeah.
You remember this?
Yep.
And they are getting ready to tour the country on a bus, go from city to city. The whole point is to talk about economically. How are we hurting economically? Like where is our disadvantage economic and not just us being Black?
Right.
Right? Who are we economically and why? What are those systems and all of that? Now we're taking the conversation, we are taking the conversation away from being under the umbrella of race, and we're talking about economics and people. If we're going to go from city to city on a bus, guess what? We're going to start to see the common ground we have economically across these racial lines.
Mm.
Oh, shit.
Mm.
Oh, shit. Now what? Obama's in office.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
Obama's in office.
Yeah, he ain't gonna be on the bus tour.
He's not on the bus tour.
Yeah, he's in Martha's Vineyard.
So let's go back. Let's go back. Tell me how many times you watched The Kings of Comedy.
Must have been.
Do you know the whole dialogue?
I know the whole dialogue by heart. Kings of Comedy. The great Bernie Sanders. I mean, Bernie Mac, Bernie Sanders. It's a political Freudian slip there.
But Bernie Sanders is a issue when we're talking about
Yes.
Dr. Cornel West
Yes,
and
that's why I
that
said
time.
it. That's why I
and
said
that
it.
time,
But
yeah.
Bernie Mac, Cedric the Entertainer, Steve Harvey, and D.L. Hughley.
Okay.
Original Kings of Comedy tour. I know the whole thing by heart.
That you can see it, and you don't have to buy a ticket to go and watch this in the city that it's touring. This is on a motion. This is a Hollywood production movie.
Right.
And now a DVD. You're watching at home several times.
Right.
Who are the people who have just tell me this. When Tavis Smiley has reached the success, if we call it that, but he's in the position that he's in, public radio, that type of thing, has his own show, that he's even able to facilitate a panel discussion as large as it was every year, where a live audience came to several days in a row.
Yeah.
And it was on
C-SPAN.
C-SPAN.
Right.
This is where Tavis is at.
I don't even know how you get shit on C-SPAN. That tells you that's in and of itself. I couldn't call C-SPAN right now and hold the town hall about the state of Minneapolis.
Listen.
Who's running C-SPAN?
Listen.
Maybe I could actually. I think the federal government might be in charge of C-SPAN, but I gotta look into that.
I'm gonna encourage anybody who's listening to go back, pull it up, and listen. Just keep an open mind. You're going to see some people that maybe you already have an opinion of for whatever the reason may be.
They were all there. Michael Eric Dyson,
but listen,
Colin Powell, Jesse Jackson.
But listen to what's being said and listen to the audience and the way that they are reacting and not reacting to who's there. And there is a full-blown blackball of Tavis Smiley and Cornel West. As this is happening. Why?
Because of Farrakhan.
No, I don't. Well, listen, I think Farrakhan's participated in those State of the Unions, sure. I don't know that was really the problem. I think the problem was that
Tavis and well, here's what. No,
what I'm saying is,
go ahead.
Louis Farrakhan was not directly a part of what this was getting ready to be.
No, but he was, though. Let me tell you how.
Well, he was because he said it.
Yes.
He said this is what should happen in indirect ways.
And then they went on went on to parlay it.
They went on to parlay it.
But the people who were watching knew where it came from.
Listen,
they knew.
Whose voices are you hearing call Tavis Smiley and Cornel West traitors?
Who? Go ahead, say them.
Steve Harvey.
Yes. Who else? D.L. Hughley?
Well, D.L. Hughley is not
later. He came later.
He comes
later.
He comes along the same little thing.
Same track.
And you listen to him now.
There you go. Cedric the Entertainer done stayed out of it.
I mean,
and Bernie Mac died because Bernie Mac would have said something.
Bernie Mac was the real one.
He was the realest one. He would have said something different.
He was a real one.
You
cannot deny that.
Yeah. He was funny. Another one who would just talk about, it's fun. And I say this to end, and we're almost approaching 2 hours here. We can't run over
What I'm saying to you is that anytime we start to show as though that this narrative is going to be challenged,
we meet institutional resistance.
We meet a blackball.
By Who?
Well,
Is it other black people or is it white liberals? Is it the Jewish lobby that runs a big portion of the media? Is it the same people who try to blackball Ice Cube? Is it the same people Jeff Quadnitz said, my client's not anti-Semitic. This is how y'all are actually operating. He's not lying. Or is it black people doing it to themselves? Or is it a combination of the three?
like I said, I'm just gonna say, there's liars
Yeah.
and there's people who
Accept the lie and lie to
accept the
themselves.
lie and just continue to lie to themselves.
Damn.
That this and then it's just a harmonious foolery.
It looks crazy.
It
Okay, let
looks
me ask you
crazy.
this.
It's levels of crazy.
Let me ask you this. I talk about this all the time on the podcast to end. To all the time on the podcast to end here, I want to ask you this question. You grew up you came up as a cosmetologist, right? Esthetician, I'm sorry.
Who said I was a waitress? Somebody said I was a waitress.
I don't know where that, because I said that you paid the rent with tips. They thought that you were
thought
a
I was a
waitress,
waitress.
not a esthetician. Well, estheticians make tips too. But so you came up as an esthetician, right?
Yes.
And in the hair care and beauty industry, you run into a lot of LGBTQ people, gay and lesbian folks that work in the industry, right? Hairstylists, men that are men.
I say that it's probably it's an industry that is welcoming
Right.
but I don't know that. Yes, to be factual, yes, but I don't know that it's more so than any other.
Industry.
Right? I mean, I grew up here.
Well, true. That you
I
live
mean,
in Twin Cities, right?
I grew up in the Twin Cities. I don't
Yeah.
know that to me that's not so.
Well, it seems that way because
I mean, that would be the same as saying
the
that
profession seems more
being a
feminine
part of the theater or being a part,
True.
like
Well,
like that.
No, it's
that
different. It's
that in
different because
artistic circles that this is more whatever. But
no,
I
it's a
don't
little
know.
different because men doing hair is seen that men doing hair, nails, or any other thing in the beauty care industry seems like a more feminine profession. Bottom line, whether they're gay or not, doing hair just seems is traditionally seen as a more feminine job. So if you're gay in those industries, it kind of sticks out. And you may not even be gay. I remember I don't know if they
Also
were
a
gay or not.
narrative.
True, no doubt. It's a narrative. That is true. But my point is, even coming up here in the Twin Cities, have you ever seen the LGBTQ agenda get as wild as it is now? Like, were there like, and is it concerning?
I think
Like
what's
teaching little kids about the transgender agenda in the grade school, for example.
I think what's concerning across the board, any marginalized group who considers themselves to be marginalized, right? I think what's concerning is that whatever there is that needs to be handled, people's compassion, people being treated fairly, all of those things, I think it becomes concerning if that agenda is being co-opted. Period. I think there's been many times. I mean, what we didn't talk about in me growing up is the things that were going on that made me feel like, I mean, I was part of my NAACP youth branch.
Yeah.
I was. My aunt was on a board for job training, OICs of America. I went to, we're talking about Al Sharpton. I heard Al Sharpton was a keynote speaker.
Mm.
Jesse Jackson was a keynote speaker. I was present there when I was beginning high school. These are things that, there were no big media, George Floyd's, Philando Castile's, Jamar Clark's.
Yeah, this was all on the tailwinds of the Civil Rights
Right.
Act.
We're at a whole nother level
Yeah.
now with a global reaction to these
Everything.
injustices being caught on someone's cell phone video, right?
Right.
And we're at a whole nother level now. But if you go back to before those things, the things that were happening were like Dr. King's birthday being a national holiday. And they marched every year. So I'm saying this, when you are connected as a marginalized group, and that marginalized group believes as though we need to have a voice to lift a cause or to change legislation or change conditions,
Mm-hmm.
the last thing you want, what is a huge disservice and should be concerning, is that you, the people who are within this marginalized group, believe that a thing is happening and it's really not.
Yeah.
And
That's
it's
right.
really not. Are we actually, what are we doing here?
Yeah, no,
Are
but
we
wait, though.
actually
There's a
changing
difference. Hold on.
things?
Wait a second. There's a difference. There's a difference because what you're talking about is for black people.
No, I'm telling you that as a Black woman and coming of age, these are things that I honestly reflect on who the times I've had that I've believed that an agenda was being served
And
and
it
met,
wasn't.
and it
No,
was not.
but again, you're talking about a black agenda, not to be confused or conflated with no LGBTQ agenda.
Listen,
Nuh-uh. Wait,
no,
hold
no.
on. Wait a
But
second. Wait a second. Wait a second. Wait a second.
hold on.
Uh-uh.
Hold on. This
Uh-uh.
your show. This your show.
Oh,
I'm still your mom.
Hold on, mom. Because
Still the
this
mom.
is the thing.
Still the mom.
When people say marginalized groups, they're not all made equal and righteous. It's one thing for black. It was one thing for black people to say, you know, not hiring us because we're black, but we're still qualified is a problem. Now, the response to that could have been, should have been, and the question that should have been asked is, are you really qualified? Because if you go deep enough and you talk about the money, you could say there were black people who were qualified, who weren't getting jobs because they were black. That happened. But if they were really qualified, if they were really competent in the given field, and if there was really a black community, they would have pulled together and built that same institution run by black people, and then black people would have hired black people. But what you find is when black people run their own business, they tend to hire white folks. When black people actually get enough money to run their own company, if it's not neighborhood located, they'll hire white folks. Like in the NBA, for example, you get a bunch of niggas that are professional basketball players that hire all white agents and financial advisors. LeBron broke that mold in with respect to him.
Hold on. I don't like that example. I'm gonna push back on that.
Huh?
I'm gonna push back on that. I don't like that example.
Why?
Because there's already a given group of people. Like you don't know what somebody would have done. You don't know what somebody would have done if the culture was that when I become
That's what I'm saying.
an NBA player, that I get to go out over all of these entertainment attorneys and select a thing. It's already a given for you.
That's what I'm saying. No, I agree. But my point. No, but wait a second.
The culture is it's already a
no,
given
but
for you.
the point is it ain't already a given. It's a given because the other black people that came before you didn't tell you the truth because they sold out to the people who set it up. That's the bottom line. The niggas who the niggas who came up now, the niggas who are going into the NBA now, are being mentored and guided by other athletes who came before them that aren't telling them, hire your own agent, hire your own financial advisor. Partly because, and I'll say this, there's a lack of financial advisors and agents that are competent in the black community. Let's just be honest. If we go back and we look at the scholastics and we say, how many black lawyers and accountants are we graduating? Not a whole hell of a lot. So just by pool, you're going to have more whites than blacks, but my more whites than blacks in those specific professions. But the point I'm making is all that aside, there was a black agenda that was needed, that was, hey, you know what? And a lot of white folks agree with it. A lot of white people are completely fine with saying, you know what? Yeah, black people weren't always treated well in this country. That's true. And back in the day, that's the Steve Bannon type Democrats, the Donald Trump Democrats were like, yeah, you know what? The Civil Rights Act needed to happen. Now, how it was used after the fact is different. We could have, a choice would have been, we're going to start our own industry. The trouble with that one, and this is the one where people don't really want to go there, is the access to working capital is a big deal. See, because if you start a company and you have a relationship with the bank, you can get a loan based on collateral, or in some cases based on a good enough relationship to fund a business that has viability.
Right.
And that's a big deal, to have loan capital to start business, small business or otherwise. That's a big deal. And black people didn't have access to the capital, and we still, in many ways, don't have access to the capital unless we play the game that they want us to play with the liberal and woke agenda with the LGBTQ. And that's why I have a problem with this marginalized thing. This is a fairy tale. There's, the whole, we'll give you money, black folks. We'll give you some working capital too. You can have access to J.P. Morgan's trillions of dollars in loan capital if your company policies and mission statement align with our global political movement. Fuck you, people. Excuse my language, Mom. You people got the game twisted. But a lot of black people going along with it. They're towing that line. And I even don't make an excuse for black people there, because we could have started our own banks. See, there's a few black people out there that say, and they say it, the quiet part out loud is, niggas love when white people are in charge. Let's just be honest. A lot of you niggas love when white folks are in charge. You feel comfortable with that. Because leaving the plantation requires courage. Y'all talk like, these black folks talk like they're revolutionaries, they're Harriet Tubman types, but Harriet Tubman, it ain't easy to go off that plantation into the wilderness and have to survive. A lot of people don't really want that. They talk about it like theatrically. But when push really came to shove, and it's like, who's ready to get off the government welfare? Who's ready to actually start their own business, their own wash and fold laundromat, and see if it fails or it doesn't fail? Who's really willing to take those chances? You find a lot of black people who have either been enculturated, conditioned to think that way, or maybe they're consciously just, they're not brave like that. Right now in the black community, again, collectively, the black community is, I think, one of the top 10 wealthiest nations in the world. Why don't we have our own banks? Why do we need to go to the J.P. Morgans? Why do we need to go to the Berkshire and Hathaways or the Wells Fargo or any of these other institutions to get our loan and working capital for small businesses? Why are we still doing that? Because you niggas don't really care about each other the way that you say. And what's even worse is, not only do you not care about each other the way that you say, you're willing to pretend like you care about the gay agenda equally. You don't even care about your own agenda enough to be fronting like you care about the LGBTQ agenda. What kind of scam is that? Y'all are spending more time putting on rainbow coalitions, not Fred Hampton rainbow coalitions, New Age LGBTQ rainbow coalitions, than getting together amongst yourselves and saying, we're going to put $100 million together, and we're going to finance a bank, and we're going to let the bank be FDIC insured, and we're going to get involved in the money printing the same way that the other financial institutions are, so that we can give working capital to the black business. They don't even want black businesses. They're okay with selling their businesses to China. They're okay with outsourcing the manufacturing to China. We sold that part out. So I'm just at the point where I'm like, is there really even a black community? Because there's an American community, and we all share it. And like you said about Cornel West, the reason they went after Cornel West is because the Occupy Wall Street movement flew a little too close to the sun. That was the Icarus, right? It's like, The Occupy Wall Street movement flew a little too close to the sun. When you're going to start talking about the way the money actually works, oh, hold on a second. Barack Obama is in office. We can't talk about the greatest transfer of wealth in human history. Now, Cornel West's remedy, in my opinion, is wrong. Is this whole socialist, communist redistribution of wealth? Mamdani in New York City talking about seizing private property, and we're gonna do away with private property. Excuse me.
Right, but listen, though, somebody has to challenge the thinking of
Right,
the average person.
right.
So all of this, right? This is what I'm saying. If you could get to that point, if you get to the point where this is where I say we're just too far gone.
Yeah,
Like, who are you going to have that conversation with?
yeah, right.
Who?
Yeah. All the smoke. Joe Budden.
We're just not, listen to me right now.
Mom likes Joe
We're
Budden's
not going to
podcast.
say anything bad about Joe Budden.
Joe Budden's a funny guy, but again, I mean, it's just
I'm not going to participate in that.
that's the point. That's the point is that all of these, but that's the point though. Even you got even
But no, they're not good. They're only going to take it so far. As
Yeah.
much as I love them, they're only going to take it so
even
far.
Mark Lamont Hill. Now Mark Lamont Hill's on the show, and now he's almost coming to blows with one of the other dudes on the show who ain't really talking about nothing. In my opinion, Mark Lamont Hill, you should be sitting there, and even though I disagree with Mark Lamont Hill, and I think it's fair to say Mark Lamont Hill knows
Well,
that
no, wait a minute.
Mark Lamont. Wait a second. Mark
I
Lamont.
wouldn't do no blanket. I disagree with him.
Who?
You see, this is a problem. This is the problem with a narrative.
Huh?
You said even though I disagree with Mark
No, I
Lamont
do.
Hill. No, you disagree with him on some things.
No.
But
no. Let me
you
tell
don't
you.
disagree with Mark Lamont Hill
No,
on
let me tell you.
everything. You do not.
No, let me tell you. Because there are a few key issues that are the baseline of reality. And if we can't deal with the baseline of reality, if there's not a foundation upon which all else can be discussed, then we do fundamentally disagree. And there is such a thing as a fundamental disagreement. We may agree on a few particular things in isolation, in a vacuum, but if we don't agree on the fundamentals, we don't agree. And we're not moving past that. Like if you're gonna tell me that a man can get pregnant and have a child, we don't agree. There ain't no ifs, ands, and buts about it. I don't want to hear it. I'm not talking about it. We're not gonna circle the wagons. If you tell me that a man can get pregnant and have a child, that's it. Done. We don't agree. We could talk about any other issue in isolation, but as far as the record reflects, you and I don't agree on reality. And my point, even bringing Mark Lamont Hill up, is I like Mark Lamont Hill personally.
Me too.
And there are a lot of people that I like personally that I have fundamental disagreements about reality with. And
Or it's not everybody lives their truth. You may have some privately, you may have some fundamental agreements.
yeah,
And not everybody, right? We are talking about people who earn a livelihood talking,
right.
right?
Right.
So I mean,
But he has to own it. But again, then you could say that even the institutional control on the way that the community views things flows through Mark Lamont Hill's limitations too. And that Mark Lamont Hill is being used to limit the scope of the intellectual conversation. So they use one group like Joe Budden, and we're going to keep the conversation right here with you. And then we'll bring in a Mark Lamont Hill who gives it a little bit more intellectual gravitas, but we're going to keep it in this. We're not going to go all the way over to the other side where we ever touch reality. And so if there's a crisis of the community, I would say that that's it. Mark Lamont Hill knows his limitations. He knows me. He knows that I know, and the debate.
Well, he knows himself.
The debate that we had showed exactly, what the difference is intellectually between me and even me and Mark Lamont Hill. But I know Mark. I've known him for 10, 12, 10 plus years, and I like him personally. But I only brought him up to say, even the guys like him, they don't want to really take the conversation to a place that's too intellectual. It's part of the reason why another part of the reason why Minister Louis Farrakhan has never been, uh, uh, you know, very popular even in the black community. And let's be honest, he's never been popular he's been popular with black people who followed him,
Right.
but he's never been popular in the black community. I never remember black folks, that were in charge, that were teaching at the school, when you had a black teacher, when you had a black director at an after-school program, when you had a black basketball coach. I never remember any of them talking about Farrakhan. I never remember only people I remember talking about Farrakhan is you.
Me?
Yeah.
You mean me, Rebecca White?
That's it.
This is where, hold on, what you're saying is that you learned about, say what you're saying, just say it.
I'm saying.
You learned about Louis Farrakhan.
Through you.
Through me.
Yeah, we used to watch him on public access.
Yes.
And I take a lot of grief from that still, from the Republicans, because they just can't get over the whole Nation of Islam, Muslim, anti-Semitic thing. And I just ask them, I go, if you had the choice, if the emphasis on being educated and dressing like you have some self-respect was something that a Minister Louis Farrakhan could push across the black community, first and foremost, before anything else, if those two things, let's say three things, the way you eat, the way that you dress, and the way that you speak and carry yourself, if those three things were three things that we could push to the black community, Republicans have to ask themselves, would they trade that for the chaos that they see in black communities now? I'm not sure what that answer would be. And that's a problem on the Republican side. But on the black side is we rejected him. We rejected Farrakhan. We rejected the Nation of Islam. People try and act like Minister Louis Farrakhan's this beloved figure in the black community. A lot of black people like and acknowledge Minister Louis Farrakhan in secret. They don't do it in public. They don't do it. They don't do it, out in front. They don't do it, in fact, I remember one individual by the name of Kendrick Perkins and his other roundabout gang of basketball.
That wasn't about Farrakhan, though. That was about Malcolm X.
Ipso facto, same difference, right?
No,
to us it's not, but for him,
it's not. But for
him, it is.
Yeah, he said
he doesn't know the difference.
What he said is, I'm not into that Malcolm X shit.
He did say that. Remember that?
I ain't forgot it.
Kendrick Perkins, you big, silly, goofy sellout motherfucker. And people were like, "Why are you so mad about that?"
Oh, I literally lost my shit.
I thought to myself, "Is this Negro?"
He said it's so casual too. He said it's so.
Did he actually just disrespect Malcolm X like it was nothing?
I'm not even into that shit. He said that shit.
And you know what's crazy? It'd be one thing. Like, let me give an example. It'd be one thing if,
I'm not into pickleball.
It'd be one thing if not Colin Powell, I'm sorry. It'd be one thing if Dr. Cornel West said something like that. Because Dr. Cornel West is an intellectual in his own right, and he is, even though I disagree with him on some fundamental things.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is a brilliant man.
Very smart.
A disciplined man. A well-articulated man and a compassionate man that has probably, who has probably changed I'm not saying completely hypocritically, I'm just saying this is somebody who was the highlight of what he was saying at this time was one thing, and then in the next decade it was something else, and he's changed, and so what?
Right.
So what if I disagree with him on a thing? Where's the lie? Go back and listen to what he said and tell me where the lie is. Where is the lie? That's what I'm on. Because I'm older than you.
I could tell you where the lie is.
I'm 24 years older than you, and I can just listen.
I could tell you where the lie is. The lie is that the redistribution of wealth through a communist state is ever
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying about Cornel West. I'm not even just talking about specifically Cornel West. I'm talking about Farrakhan. I'm talking about you.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't like him because you want to think this thing about him and you want to generalize something in this way. But if he said something, who are you to not listen to it? You don't even have to take it too much further than, is what he is saying factual? Can you learn something from it being factual?
Right.
I'm not going to get into what somebody else thinks about Louis Farrakhan. I'm not going to get into what somebody else thinks about Malcolm X or
Yeah.
Kendrick Kendrick Perkins, or, like, I'm just not invested that way. I could
Yeah.
sit and listen to somebody and go, I agree with that.
That was factual.
I think that that's factual.
Right.
And you
Right.
know what? Matter of fact, it might just be provocative. It might just be something that interests me, and it might spark me to go actually do some research and find out how true is that thing or how not true is that thing.
Yeah.
The point is do I inspire some thought?
And there is a crisis of that in
And I
our
don't
day
want
and
to hear a
age.
whole lot of that blanketed
There is
generalization.
a
I
lot of
just disagree with you, so I toss you away. Like,
yeah.
no, you might disagree with me today.
No, I
Tomorrow,
agree with Dr.
whatever.
Well, first off, I agree with Dr. Cornel West on a number of things. Dr. Cornel West was, again, flew too close to the sun with Occupy Wall Street. But, again, in retrospect, the same way that I tried to lead peaceful protests after George Floyd died, Dr. Cornel West and I made a similar mistake in thinking that we could tell the truth and that the powers that be in the institutions around us didn't have other plans. And Dr. Cornel West was blackballed and is still blackballed. And when he tried to run for president, they showed you how much they don't really care for him in the way that they treated him because despite what the Democrat Party's uh, theater about wealth inequality and the power of big corporations is just that. It's theater. Because that's the base of their political power. The dominant political power base of the Democrat Party are the big corporations, the transnational
Hello.
global corporations. So that's why they don't that's why Cornel West fell on deaf ears. And I also do think that Dr. Cornel West, in many ways, believes in a proto-socialist communist political framework. And it's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous in every sense of the consideration. It's completely un-American, and it's never worked. It's not working now. Dr. Cornel West, show me the defense of China. Show me the defense of the communism that China is using to run their country. They all say they hate Vladimir Putin. Their complaint of Vladimir Putin is that he stems from a thinking in Russia when the KGB was an extension or a relic of Stalin, who was another communist. So all of their geopolitical, you know, all of their geopolitical philosophy seems to be in opposition to communism, but their domestic policy seems to favor communism, which is the crazy. It's like all of these illegal immigrants coming from these other countries and they're fleeing socialist, communist dictatorships, and we need to let them come live in this country because it's so bad from them where they came from. But then we want to turn our country into a country like where they came from. So I get what you're saying, that there's, two sides to the coin, but there is a real answer. And I think that Mark Lamont Hill and Dr. Cornel West, and again, I brought him up because anyway, the reason Cornel West, if Dr. Cornel West said, I'm not on that Malcolm X shit, in my opinion, he has some legitimacy to be able to make that type of statement because he's an intellectual.
It would make you say, well, why?
Yeah.
Because
he's earned that.
You've earned some.
But Kendrick Perkins,
tell me the other part to the story and give me the reason why, because that interests me.
Man, Kendrick Perkins has not earned the right to even discuss Malcolm X in any other way other than there was a man that was interested and involved and committed and disciplined about things that I have not yet come to grasp. That's what he should have said about Malcolm.
That's what he should have said.
Malcolm X was a man who was involved in things, who was thinking about things, who was disciplined and committed about things, who gave his life for things that I haven't even really started to wrestle with. That's what Kendrick Perkins.
Right.
And this is what makes it crazy. There was this clip that went viral a week back. He's doing the sports commentary, right? and there's a pretty young lady who he's on the show with, and he says to her, he throws a shot at her. He shoots a shot at her. He tries to flirt with her, and he goes,
Wait a minute. Huh?
He's on the show.
He's trying to be funny, you mean? He was just trying to be funny?
Yes. It appeared that he was trying to be funny, but even in the joke, let me tell you what he said. He said, what do you need an ibuprofen for when you could have a perk?
No, he didn't.
I swear to you, this is what he said.
Yeah, well.
I swear to, it's all over. You didn't see the clip?
I'm trying to tell you, I don't
You ain't
follow.
trying to watch.
Listen,
I watch just to find stuff like, see, because this blows my mind. You're talking about a guy who said with no equivocations, no hesitation whatsoever, I'm not in that Malcolm X shit.
But he will say that. So this is.
But these are the niggas. Hold on, Mom. These are the niggas. These are the Negroes. These are the Negroes. These are the bourgeois Negroes that they pay high dollar to be on ESPN. And then when a Stephen A. Smith stands up and finally goes, you know what, I'm sick of this. Can we at least have a conversation with both sides of the aisle? The entire black community says Stephen A. Smith is a sellout. I would say he was selling out before when he wasn't willing to have no conversations about what's going on in our community and politics, and he was more sticking to the sensationalism of sports. Then everybody was okay with it. As long as he was getting paid high dollar to do sensational sports takes, the black community in large part said, yeah, we don't like his opinion, but he's getting his money. Now, and
get your bag.
Get your bag. It's become a mantra. You
get your bag.
See, when I hear a term like "get the bag" become so prevalent in our culture, I say you niggas are all sellouts. If that's the Malcolm X died broke.
Get your bag.
Hold on, Malcolm X died broke. Martin Luther King died broke. The only civil rights leaders that have anything to show for their civil rights activism are the civil rights leaders that the white liberals gave money to after the real ones were put in the ground. Al Sharpton got rich. Jesse Jackson got rich. Ben Crump's getting rich. A bunch of other black folks are now getting rich off of these pro-black movements. Shit, BLM got rich. Did you get some money?
No.
I didn't get no money.
So no, but I'm sure there's somebody somewhere that's gonna say that you got some money, I got some money.
Shit, we ain't got no money.
Baby,
we still ain't got no money.
Baby, listen, y'all want to see my purse? My purse is sitting right here. Do you want to see it?
We still don't have no money.
First of all, I won't talk about the lack of money in the purse. You could just look at the presentation of the purse.
The purse tells you.
The purse.
You ain't, so you don't have a Birkin bag. You're not a part of the Birkin bag club?
No, it's not even just the who made the purse.
It's the physical condition of it?
It's the physical condition of the purse will tell you. It'll tell you. That you are a blue collar black woman. Baby.
Okay.
Listen.
But this is my point. It's just like my contempt, and Mama White's being nice. This is her first time on the podcast. Three chapters in, she's gonna be going off, and she's not gonna have the patience. You're doing a good job of
I think I'm doing a really good
job.
You're
doing a really good job.
Have I cussed once?
You didn't. I cussed. I swore. And people are going to say, you swear in front of your mom. You swearing in front of your mom? Me and my mom swear all the time. We got those St. Paul Catholic sailor mouths.
I love the art.
Of cussing?
Of cussing. I think that it's... I don't think you should use it as a reason to be offensive. Like, you just don't have the right to just say it anywhere, but I enjoy the art.
What I'm saying is, it blew my mind, and it still blows my mind that a black man in this country could say, I'm not on that Malcolm X shit.
And hold on, this is the other thing that blows me.
And then go on TV and say, what you need an ibuprofen for when you could have a perk.
That's actually so gross to me. It makes me.
Nigga, what'd you say?
I just want to act like that really did happen.
And I want to see the group chat of his friends. I want to see what people were telling him about that. I want to see if there was any inner because I'm not even because people were saying, oh well, there's going to be a sexual harassment meeting at HR and Human Resources because he made a pass at her online. See, that's what they're worried about. That tells you that the feminist liberal agenda has taken control of the black community. The running joke online was now Kendrick Perkins is going to lose his job at ESPN because he made a sexual romantic pass at one of his female coworkers. That's what they were
And
worried.
he fumbled the bag.
And he fumbled the bag. They weren't worried about the fact that he just promoted the casual use of Percocet because so many niggas are using them. I'm done. You know what I'm saying? Listen, go ahead.
I can't.
I know. Don't get me going. We could be rolling all day. This podcast would be 4 hours if we got going. But it was great to have you in the studio today, Mom. I appreciate it.
It was fun.
Love you.
Love you too.
We appreciate the way that you chose to raise me, and the many things that had to go into the choices you made to keep me from some of the more dangerous and self-destructive element in the black community. Some of it I sought out myself, as many young black men do. And again, I'm critical of black men and I'm critical of the black community, but it's only from experience because I know how easy it is to fall into, but I also know how valuable it is to turn away from. So we appreciate you, Mom. I appreciate it. It's great to have you on. We look forward to having you back on the podcast. I hope I can even get this up on StreamYard because it's 2 hours and 20 minutes. We might have a 2-hour limit. I have to split it into two just for StreamYard, but that's fine. That's no problem. But anyway, in closing, what do you think about right now? You look out, political, culture, 2026 election, Minnesota. What are your final thoughts about where the world is today and where the community is today as for next time?
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that I think that it's okay. It's okay to let something new happen. I think it's okay to let something new happen. I think that we're in a place where we really need to say that whatever we've believed in thus far and whatever we've depended on thus far to get us right where we are, it's okay to let it go. And
let it go.
It's okay to let this thing go. It's okay to let it go and just, we could stand new things all the way around.
Yeah.
New leadership, new policies, new mindset.
Yeah. Something new.
Something new, please.
Because what we did ain't working right now.
This is just not working. And it's okay. It's okay. It didn't work.
Yeah.
It's okay.
We tried it.
It
didn't work.
We don't have to carry a whole lot of shame and all of that. We don't have to get so crazy about the pointing fingers at this is why it didn't work and this is why it didn't work and I need a scapegoat. No, just relax.
Didn't work.
It's relax. Listen, it's okay to just say, you know what? We are not in a good place.
Yeah.
Let's let this go. Let's abandon this thing and let's just invest our self-esteem in who we are on whatever new thing we choose and how we invest in the new thing. Let this thing go.
This thing ain't working the way
Not
it
working.
is. Yeah. Amen. Amen. Another episode of Please Call Me Crazy. The great Rebecca White, my dear mother, in the studio today. We appreciate you stopping in, Mom. Again, love you, and we will have you back soon. Next, we got to talk Donald Trump, the MAGA movement, politics. As you see, we're talking politics next time. To everybody else out there, we appreciate your viewership and listenership today and in the future. We promised that the great Mother White would be in the studio, and here she is. We hope you enjoyed the interview and getting to meet my mom for the first time. Tune back in tomorrow. Thursday night, we're going to have a Remember Normal episode as we have moved to the daily podcast schedule, 9 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday. And that's it for us. Yeah, Remember Normal. We're going to go out to a song where we got to use a dancing machine. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Dancing Machine.
We're
Jackson
going
5.
We're going out to Dancing Machine Jackson 5 at my mother's request as a part of the Remember Normal movement. Remember Normal. Man, I mean, there was a normal. Some of this shit ain't normal. A lot of this shit just ain't normal. Yeah. And there are normal people, and we can do normal things again. Like you said, just it didn't work. Let it go.
Okay.
It's okay.
We're going to be fine.
Just let it go.
Let it go.
Let it go. It didn't work. It's not working. Yeah. I look at our young black kids and their proficiency in reading and math and writing, and I go, wow, I feel bad.
It's astounding.
It's staggering.
It's absolutely, I can't even find the words.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to have a conversation about it.
Yeah. Tough times ahead, but there is a pathway forward. I mean, we do have all the tools that we need. Just got to choose to use them the right way. That's it for us. God bless you. God bless America. Godspeed. We'll see you again tomorrow. Everything's up on the bar. We're all in. We get to decide. Do you want to live on your knees, or do you want to die on your feet fighting? That's the decision you get to make now.